Good day.
Good day. All right. So my name is Monique Edwards, and I am the chair for the Government Policies and Issues Committee, affectionately known as GPIC. So welcome to today's advocacy forum. Before we get started, I'd like to just give a few thank yous because I do want to say thank you to the staff here at the association because they do help run the day-to-day operations, and that needs to be commended because we are a 10,000 plus member association, and that's a really big task. I also want to say thank you to the immediate staff who helped organize this event as well. And I want to say thank you to the speakers for being willing to come and speak to us about a few things that are going to be pretty big changes here in Wake County and seeing the vision and the need for that for realtors. And I'd also like to say thank you to the audience because it was brought to my attention that we had about 145 people register in the first 24 hours over this event. And then people were still asking if they could come. And of course, you know, my answer to that is always going to be yes, simply because we are here for the betterment of the members, and getting the numbers really is about just making sure there's enough food. I would like to take a moment to have any of the Raleigh Association board members please stand, because I'd like to recognize them. Thank you. I too serve on that board, and 2 hours ago we began a meeting to conduct the business of the association, and they were gracious enough to hop across from the other room and participate in today's event and be supportive. And in that, we are led by President Pitt, who is absolutely phenomenal. Great supporter of mine and the members and just the association as a whole over the years. And so before we actually get started today, I would like to give her an opportunity for us to hear a word from our president. So President Pitt. No problem, take your time.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chair Edwards. Want to thank you and Vice Chair John McBride and all members of GPIC. Want to welcome our guests today to this. Thank you for your time. I mean, I know that it is an important subject, so thank you, Commissioner Evans and Tammy. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate and are excited to hear what you have to share with us today. And I just want to thank all of our members who are here, you know, joining us to hear about the changes at registered deeds. You know, that we got to get those recordings in, because recordings need money. So thank you. We ask that you, you know, ask your questions, be engaged. But I'd just like to say, this was the third of my strategic driven member focus. So my third point for success was actually this. We need to embrace a culture of advocacy where members are involved in their local community policy discussions and understand the challenges and obstacles our industry faces. So again, thank you for being here. This is your first step in participating in that advocacy. And I ask that this not be your last time that you participate in our advocacy efforts. And I invite you to our legislative meetings that will be held March 29th through legislative day. Legislative day on March 29th. Join us at the downtown legislative building so we can show the legislators that we are serious about our advocacy by showing up. Thank you.
And in true fashion, with GPIC, it is a tradition for us to do our Pledge of Allegiance. So if there is someone in the audience who would like to remain seated during the Pledge of Allegiance, that's perfectly fine. Please feel free to do so. However, I am going to have our Vice Chair, John McBride, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance before we officially start.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, John. It would just be a travesty if I didn't say this. Happy International Women's Day. And as a woman who is leading one of the most powerful and successful committees, it is truly my honor to be able to have this advocacy forum today because I get to introduce two very, very powerful women who are in Wake County. So before we get started, I do want to tell you the way that we're going to do this today is because I do want there to be a lot of member engagement around the topics being discussed today. So we are going to first have one speaker come and speak, and then John will then lead us into questions for that particular speaker. And then our next speaker will then speak, and then we'll take questions for that speaker. Now, we always have a lot of questions, but of course, you know, that has to have some control mechanism. So it will be time for questions. So we'll have about 10 minutes per person. So just to set proper expectations. So let's get started here. So I would like to first say that Wake County is a beautiful place to live. It really is. And I am a native of Wake County. And so it is a complete pleasure to be able to bring forth to us Commissioner Susan Evans. Susan Evans is a native of North Carolina, and she has lived in Wake County for about 40 years. She is happily married. I love to always add that adjective there. And she is a very, very happy grandparent, right? Yes, right. Yes, we love that. And she currently serves as the vice chair on the Wake County Board of Commissioners. And she has a bachelor's degree in business administration and accounting. And she went to my alma mater, UNC Chapel Hill. Yes. And for many years, when she was working for regional businesses, most of her work dealt with business and accounting altogether, right? But the one thing that people probably don't recognize about her is that she had a career dealing in residential local building industry. And we love that for her, right? We love that because it makes our jobs a lot easier to be working with elected officials who understand the nuances of our industry, which is why she is a realtor champion for RRAR. She also currently serves as the education chair for the Wake County Board of Commissioners and has been, she would say, an advocate, I say champion for public education, especially early childhood education, K through 12, and community colleges. Now, as the vice chair, she has very important duties. But the reason that she is here today is because she also serves as a member for Affordable Housing Committee for Wake County. And that is right up our alley because, as you know, our industry struggles in that area. So today she has come to speak to us about the housing supply versus the demand in a growing Wake County. And so it gives me pleasure to bring forth Commissioner Susan Evans so that she can discuss these topics with us today. And thank you so much, Commissioner Evans, for being with us. You have the floor.
Monique and everyone, I'm so happy to be with you today.
you know, if you've lived in Wake County a minute or more, you know that we're always growing and evolving and changing. But for the most part, in the 40+ years that I've been here, I think we've done a pretty good job of that. But with that kind of growth comes some challenges. We're going to talk about some of those challenges today and some of the ways that Wake County and our municipal partners are working together to try and make a difference, particularly in the housing industry. I'm going to start with some demographic data, and it's a lot of data, but it's important stuff that I think some of it you'll intuitively know, and some of it I think might be eye-opening. Wake County's population is currently 1.15 million residents. We just had a census in 2020, and it's based on that, and that is about 422,000 households. That's an estimate as of July 1, 21, and we'll be getting a new estimate here in the next month or so. So that data is just 3/4 of a year old, but that's where we were in July last year. Most eye-opening, probably not to the realtors in the area, is that we've been growing at a pace of approximately 62 net people a day. That's net migration minus those that have moved out. And that is based on, if you look at the census data for the decade between 2010 to 2020, the population that we gained during that period averages out to about 62 people a day. We think that it may be slowing down the slightest bit, and we'll get some data about that soon, but that's where we think we have been. We are now the largest county in the state. For many years, we trailed slightly behind Mecklenburg in population, and we overtook them in the 2020 census. You can see the largest 10 counties in the state, and also highlight that Durham is number 5. And so together, the Raleigh-Durham metro region is a pretty significant population area at this point. And obviously, we work together on many things with our Durham neighbors and other regional neighbors. We have a lot of folks in Wake County that travel to Durham to work and vice versa. Additionally, we are the 3rd fastest growing of the counties in the U.S. that have over 1 million people. And so we are just behind Collin County, Texas, which is part of the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area, particularly the Plano portion, and Riverside County, California, which is the southeast edge of Los Angeles metro area. So the 3rd fastest growing metro area with over 1 million people in the country. This graph shows our 2021 median household income. The second bar on the left, the green, is the average North Carolina household income. And the 4th bar is the average United States household income. So you can see that by and large, we're well above the North Carolina average household income and the nation. You can see that we have a wide spread across our various municipalities. By and large, our eastern and southeastern areas of the county have slightly lower household incomes than the western and northern. But overall, we're doing quite well in Wake County. The Raleigh area housing inventory, no surprise, it's down 46% since 2018. I think this. That's a chart. You can see where we are here. Back in January 2017, that was after the recession, after the Great Recession, but after things had stabilized somewhat. And then our highest point since then has been around January or February 2018. I know you've all lived this graph, so I don't have to explain too many of these numbers to you. But we're down 46% since that high water mark, the gray mark, of 5,274 units in October of 18. And despite rebounding from the February 22 low of 659 units in inventory in February of 22. And we know that was a crazy time for all of you. I was talking to some of the realtors earlier. You know, it was a painful, it's gotten a little bit better, but it's a painful time to be a buyer's agent in particular. The median real estate price by month is here. This just shows from February 22 to February 23 this past year. These represent the core market. My staff took out of these numbers the extremely large transactions, so we can just look at the core market, which is going to include most of your housing. And 94% of the February transactions occurred in that core market. For this February, the median is up about 15,000 year over year. But you can note that back in February of 2020, just on the eve of the pandemic, well, that's not on this chart actually, but on the eve of the pandemic, February 2020, this median price was $302,000. And then our high point was in June of 2022 at $470,000 for the median price of a home in Wake County. You know, due to some of the things that have happened in the last year with Feds pushing up the interest rates to help control inflation, we've come down a little bit, but we're currently at about $435,000, the median price of a home in Wake County. This chart is the aggregate value of all real estate transferred. The blue areas are the core market. The orange is the high market between $1 million and $30 million, and the gray is the super high market above $30 million. But in total, let's see, for February of 23, we are at 1,689 transactions for a total aggregate amount of $1 billion of total sales. That compares back to June of 22, the tallest bar, where we had 2,966 sales for a total of 2.5 billion. So just in, what's that, 8 months? See the difference there. And as we already alluded, that time during 20 and 21 and 22 was pretty crazy. This next chart shows that. This is the deed volume. Might be a little hard to make out, but the green is the 2021 numbers by month, the number of deeds. This is not the dollar value. This is just the sheer number of deeds processed during those times, thanks to Tammy's office. The red is the 2022, and the blue is the first 2 months of 2023. So you can see again, 2021 was really, really active. 2022 still pretty darn active, the red and the green. And now we've slowed down so far in January and February of this year. And in fact, it's also the lowest point. February of this year is the lowest point since the start of 2020 before the pandemic. Talk a little bit about what's happening with growth and development. Looking at new residential construction permits by year. I think this slide might be the most important slide you'll see today, in case you're not aware. So the 2007 bar on the far left was prior to the Great Recession. So in 2007, we had 8,744 permits issued that year. Then you can see things went down in 2010 as a result of the recession, and have been coming back up since. But even for the full year of 2022, We had 8,448, which is still below that mark of permits in 2007. Keep in mind that in the decade from 2010 to 2020, we gained almost 250,000 people in our population in Wake County, but our permits are still below where they were in 2007. If anyone wonders why our housing prices are going up, you can pretty much point to that statistic. Yes, there's been supply chain issues. Yes, there's been cost escalations. Yes, the cost of labor is going up, but by and large, the supply and demand of what's happening with housing in Wake County is largely what's pushing houses up. And I just think, if you don't remember anything else from the data I shared today, if you remember that permits from last year were still not as high in 2007, but our population at this point is probably up about 30% from 2007. Wonder why we have a shortage of housing. This is just a heat map that kind of shows where the permits were issued for last year, calendar year 2022. No surprise, some of the central areas that are a little more built out already are blue, but the red areas around the perimeter where we're seeing lots of activity. Raleigh as a municipality did have the most permits, but they're kind of spread all around. So it's no one heat map, but you can see areas like Fuquay Arena in the southeast and still Holly Springs, and some of the places in the northeast. Fuquay Arena was the second largest in number of permits after the city of Raleigh for last year was 1,600 permits. You'll notice Morrisville is the least, but that is because Morrisville is pretty much landlocked, so they pretty much built out all they had. That's why there's really very little. And the same, with the exception of far west Cary and the southern parts of Apex, Cary and Apex are Cary, sure, is getting close to being built out. However, they are focusing on a lot of revitalization of the inner core count of Cary. So there is still building going on there. Building condos and things in the core. But I still always think that's an interesting look, but not won't be surprising to any of y'all because you know where your activity centers have been. This one is very relevant. This chart shows the growth surrounding Wake County. All the folks that work and do things in Wake County no longer live in Wake County, but probably never have. This map shows building permits for the residential and commercial, but it zooms out to include our 5 neighboring counties. You see the totals in the corner for the permits for Chatham, Clayton, Durham, Franklin, and Harnett counties. You can see Harnett, 828. Pretty significant numbers, but those areas within that 5-mile border contributed to 2,776 permits in total. And you add that together with the Wake permits of 8,620, those outlying areas around our perimeter were nearly 25% of the total number of permits in the area. It's important to recognize that citizens who work in Wake seek more affordable housing outside of the county. Because they many instances can't afford to live in Wake, and we think that's unfortunate. And as was mentioned, I am a member of our affordable housing committee. I'm not going to spend as much time talking about all the different things that the county is doing to try to address affordable housing, because y'all have had some speakers in the last couple of years from my board that have talked about that. But I just want to, acknowledge that we're doing a lot of work in that arena, and we're working with our municipal partners. But at the same time, the conversation that we're having today plays into that, because until we have more supply on the ground, it's going to be really, really hard to have affordable housing. So it's all interwoven. This shows the growth in Wake County housing permits, the number of units, and it's divided up into, I think, single family is the blue and the green is 2+ units. And this shows from 2017 to 2022. So what's most noteworthy about this data and is that you can see our peak in 2021 in single family and then go back down a little bit, but look what's happening in the 2+ market. The green bars are going way up, and that's a good thing because we actually, with the growth that we're experiencing in Wake County, we need more density. And so it's a good thing to see. I just wish the blue bar was up at the same time. We need all of that happening. But it is interesting to see that overall, you know, that the portion of multifamily is growing quicker than the single. Okay, permitted housing units from 2007 to 2022. These, this data gives us some markers for before the recession, towards the end of it, and after the recession, but before COVID, and then third year after COVID. So the first, the light blue is pre-recession. The green is, you know, green and the orange are stabilizing years after the recession, but before COVID, and then 2022. And so you can see the number of permits per type there as well. And this data comes from the U.S. Census Bureau. We're still not back to those pre-recession levels, as we already noted, but the 5+ unit building numbers in the third set of columns, they're negligible amounts in the 2 units and 3 units. But when you get to the 5 units, there again, look at the purple lines for the more recent stuff, and you can see that we're, you know, now doing a lot more multi-unit than we were previously. And this just shows single family housing permits issued. The blue bars are just the quantity, but the red zigzag shows what percentage the single family was of the total at those particular points in time. So back in 2017, it was 75%, and now for 2022, single family is 49% of the total housing permits. And these things just tend to vary with market cycles and economic cycles, but also responding to our need for just more housing. Now, this one I think is probably the second most notable piece of data that I'll share with you today, that those of you who've been on the ground selling houses, folks probably won't be totally surprised, but 46% of Wake County's population growth in the last decade was older adults 55 and older, and 28% was older than 65. And, you know, so these older adults, you know, while this is relevant to you guys, they're going to have slightly different needs. It's what they want to see in housing versus what young families are going to want. Their decisions are not as much tied to schools and school districts as you've had to deal with most of the last 4 years. And most important, they have more money to spend. And so in addition to the supply and demand problems, this is another piece of the puzzle that's pushing our housing prices up. Because you've got people coming from out of state that are 50, 60, 65 years old with money to spend. And so I just think that's pretty eye-opening. There's more data about housing trends. The baby boomers love Wake County. And so this is overall, not just the growth. The previous slide was the growth coming in. This is stats related to our overall household owners. And within the last 10 years, the share of owner-occupied homes with head of households 55 years old or older increased from 36% in 2011 to 43% in 2021. And there are increases in shares of the homeowners in every group, 60 and above, and the largest increase was those in the 65 to 74 years of age category. And this shift means that the ages 25 to 55 are making up a much smaller pool of our owners. I find that concerning, but it is what it is. But what we're extrapolating out of this, what we are understanding, and no surprise, is a lot of those young families who are trying to move to this area are having to choose to live in Harnett, Johnston, Franklin, and other areas because they can't afford our prices. So those are implications for our county moving forward that I don't love, so I hope we can control that trend to some extent. This is just Wake ownership trends related to the corporate ownership of homes in our county. As I'm sure you're aware, there's been a stark increasing trend in the number of homes that are being bought by investors and rented and so forth, both in Wake County and across the state. And this is just kind of a heat map showing the concentration of some of those. I'm not really sure, but my staff put this together and I don't know the nature of all the colors on that map, so don't ask me any questions about it. But we certainly acknowledge that having all these investor-owned properties is impacting families' ability to get to the housing market, in addition to the problems that we have with pricing. And other counties are feeling this too. You may have heard that Mecklenburg County, some representatives from that area have put forth a bill in the legislature to try to limit or cap the number of single-family homes a particular business could buy as an investor or person to 100. But I seriously doubt it'll get any traction in the legislature, but we certainly understand why they might put that forward. And then lastly, this slide just talks about some of the other reasons why the quantity of home building is not what we'd like to see. As Monique mentioned to you, I was in the home building business for about 14 years. I'm an accountant, and I started working part-time for a builder when my children were young. And I worked for another builder, and eventually I teamed up with one, was part owner of a local home building company. Unfortunately, we didn't make it through the recession, like lots and lots and lots of other local home building companies. So one of the reasons that our capacity, our supply has never gotten back to those 2007 numbers is lots and lots of our contractors went out of business and credit was tight, and credit is still tighter than it was back before that time period. Many of you are builders as well as realtors. You're aware that it's still not quite as easy to get construction financing as it was 15 years ago. Then, of course, there's the supply chain issues that we're all aware of since the pandemic began that are not only making it more expensive to build houses, but taking much longer for houses to get completed, along with the labor shortage issues. And now, of course, we have the inflationary cost going, working against us with the cost of materials. So there's different things, you know, I've been in pretty regular conversation with folks at the Home Builders Association. They're trying to figure this out. And, you know, they've just got a lot of things working against them. Of course, we also are running out of land in Wake County, but we still have places to build. We just got to be careful with what we do with that. But those are some of the other reasons why we're having some difficulty getting houses constructed as quickly as we'd like. We'll talk just a little bit about what Wake is doing. I don't know how my time is going. I know this is a pretty lengthy presentation, so I hope y'all bear with me. I'll try to get through this. But I wanted to highlight what Wake County government has been trying to do to be a helpful partner. We started hearing a few years ago when I first got on the board that it was taking way too long to get septic permits processed. And so we've been working on that. We launched an online tool that would save time for submitting those applications, and it helps developers be able to track where their application is in the process. And we've gotten very good feedback from the builders and developers that that process is working much better. For this current fiscal year, we approved in our budget the funding for 4 additional positions in the permitting and processing department so that we can help speed up those applications. And there's another program that's in a pilot stage with our environmental services group that's looking at how they can do things even quicker to help certain types of customers get a permit within 10 days. Keep in mind now, Wake County only has jurisdiction over unincorporated areas, but we are at least trying to do our part for speeding up the processes. It's not perfect, but we're looking at it all the time, and we appreciate any feedback anyone has to share about things that are happening in developments in the county area, because we really are striving to smooth the way in the permitting and inspections where we can. Should have that slide up, but we talked about that. It's hard to jump over. And then we just undertook a lengthy process to revisit our comprehensive land use plan and approved Plan Wake in April of 2021. After a couple of years of getting lots of community input and working very closely with all our municipal partners, our planning staff worked at length to try to step back and say, what really makes sense for Wake County as we continue to develop over the next 25 years or so. And some of the key things that evolved from that was that we felt like it was extremely important at this point in time that we try to point development towards the municipalities and away from county development where it made sense to do so, because that will add more walkable mixed-use development. And then we also deliberately worked to try to protect open space, farmland, where we were hearing from the areas that they wanted to remain rural. We've put some processes in place to allow those farmers to be able to sign on to some enhanced voluntary agricultural protections to keep their land from being developed at least for the next 10 years and so forth and so on. And then we incorporated into this plan Wake something called municipal transitions standards. And this is basically where, it's a tool in our toolbox to help with density. And when a developer comes and wants to develop a piece of property and it's in the county, but relatively close to a municipality that we think that municipality would be able to provide services for in terms of water and sewer in the near term, we push that developer to just go on and talk to that municipality first, just to see if they can, accommodate them with water and sewer. Maybe in the ETJ, it may not be, but if it was within some reasonable proximity of where we think the municipality can service them, we're encouraging that because, as you probably know, if you develop in the county, that requires well and septic, and that requires large lot development. Typically, an acre of land is required to have the septic and so forth, and so. We're working on that to try to encourage, because we also recognize that outside of our watershed areas and those few areas that we've protected for rural farmland, all of Wake County is going to be developed probably within 30 years, who knows? But so it doesn't make sense to have a lot of patchwork things going on. So that's some of the things that we're trying to address in our land use planning. But we can't solve the problems alone. So, whoops, I think it went one slide. We are working with our municipalities, like we said, not just in encouraging development to go there, but we're talking to them. Our staffs are always talking to planning departments, the municipalities about what we think are the best things to look at for how we do zoning at this point in time. Now, we can't tell the municipalities what to do, but we're convening and talking with them. And then we're setting up a set of meetings coming up in the next few months where a couple of commissioners and leadership folks will go out and meet with a few electeds from each community to brainstorm affordable housing projects and possibilities and policies, as well as zoning issues to help us plan for the future sort of collectively. And I'll highlight here at the bottom, so every year our Board of Commissioners has a big planning retreat in January where we establish our overarching goal areas. And then underneath those goal areas, we establish key strategic actions that we want to focus on for the upcoming year. And we added the bottom, the key strategic action 1.2 this year that says that we want to collaborate with municipalities to explore policies that increase residential housing supply and density. And the commissioners have to rank all of their key strategic actions, and we rank that as #1 under our whole umbrella of growth and sustainability for issues to work on this year. We can't talk about growth in Wake County and not talk about transportation. So I'm real quickly going to go through these slides. For any of you who aren't as up to speed about what we're trying to do with transportation in Wake County, the residents helped us approve a 50-cent sales tax referendum in 2016, and we developed a Wake transit plan around that, and that includes, expanding. Oops. Just expanding our traditional bus routes, also doing some bus rapid transit. And we've been looking at and trying to get going on the commuter regional rail. So real quickly, bus rapid transit, if you don't know, is a system of high capacity buses that in some instances will have dedicated bus lanes. They'll have quick on and off platforms. They'll have some traffic signal prioritization at some intersections. Sorry, I keep hitting the buttons. Enhanced stations and so forth. And as my friend Joe Malazzo, who's with the Regional Transportation Alliance, likes to say, bus rapid transit, BRT stands for buses resembling trains. So here's a map of where there are 4 corridors that we're currently working on for these types of BRT routes. One is getting ready to start construction this year. Sorry. The New Bern corridor, which will go from downtown Raleigh out to the east, and will get residents out to Wake Med Hospital and a little beyond. And we've already received $35 million from the federal government to help get that one built, and construction will be starting on it this year. We have a southern corridor plan from downtown Raleigh into Garner, and a western corridor that will go from downtown Raleigh to downtown Cary. Those are both in early design phases, and the final designs for that southern and western routes will both be happening this calendar year. And then we are working on a commuter rail. We've been studying this, trying to put together the resources to make this happen. So what this is not light rail. We're not trying to do light rail for anybody. This is the utilization of currently existing rail corridors, typically used for freight trains, but also Amtrak. Through the North Carolina Railroad Company, they will allow us access to that land. We don't have to go and buy a new place to put our rail, but in large measure, we will have to lay additional track beside track that already exists to handle the volume. But we're planning for a regional commuter trail that will at least run from the eastern edge of Wake County into Durham and through RTP. So go through Garner, Raleigh, Cary, Morrisville, RTP, on into Durham, hopefully to the west side of Durham. And we're also talking with Johnson County, because if you ever have to leave here in the afternoon and go to the east, you know how problematic it is to try to get out I-40. So we want Johnson County to partner with us too. We'd like to have this going all the way to Clayton. It's about 40 miles altogether. Long and short of it is, it's come back with very good ratings. A lot of people will live across this corridor. A large number of employment centers are across this corridor. The only bad news from the feasibility study that was completed last year is that the estimated cost to build it out is much more than what we were estimating just a couple of years before, partly because of inflation, but partly because once you just really got down into the detailed engineering, there's grade crossings that have to be dealt with in several places. So anyway, we just completed a public comment period asking the public to weigh in on, do you think we should proceed with this? We're looking at phasing it. What are your thoughts on phases? We've gotten all that input and we will be deciding, and when I say we, it's the triangle leaders. I am our Wake County representative on Campo, which is the capital area metropolitan planning organization, and us along with Go Triangle and the Durham County Capitol Hill MPO are meeting frantically to try to establish some phasing that makes sense and working on getting funding from the federal government and other sources. So stay tuned. If all goes well, construction for some piece of this commuter rail could start as early as 2025 and service could start as early as 2030. And we think it'll be a game changer for our I have one slide where I was just going to mention one thing that our wonderful Register of Deeds has worked with us on, and that was electronically recording of plats. It used to be that surveyors had to come downtown to take documents and physically to Wake County Planning Department to get signed off, and then take the documents over to the Register of Deeds. And now we've automated that to a large extent, and that's going so much better. I'll let Tammy talk more about that if she'd like. I just want to thank her about that before I wrap up. They've been a great partner to work with. I know that this has been a lot of data, a lot of information. I hope I haven't bored you, but I hope you can see that our Board of Commissioners in our county is heavily engaged around housing and the impacts of growth. I and a couple other commissioners are participating with members of the Home Builders Association, some realtors and some other folks in an initiative called Imagine Wave, where we are gathering to brainstorm solutions to getting more housing out of the ground quickly and so forth. Encourage you to look into that if you're interested. And we certainly appreciate how important realtors are in getting our residents appropriately matched up with housing. And I appreciate the opportunity to be with you today and share all this information. I know I've thrown quite a bit of data at you, but I'm happy to attempt to answer any questions at this time.
Do we have any pressing questions? We have a couple. We're going to skip our pre-question.
I actually had a question. I think we can hear me up, Mike. Okay, so I was at a closing on a Friday before a long holiday. The builder would not give me the key to the house, even though it was recorded. So there's a new clause that some of the builders are using that says, until they're paid in full. And this is where it goes into my accounting question. We go into a store, we get a credit card, we walk out with a jacket. So to me, that's paid in full. But until their, and my attorney wired it, so like obviously it was recorded, until their company in Atlanta notified the attorney here, I couldn't get my key to my client. So I just thought that was something to be very careful about, whether how they're wording it in possession of the home. And I don't know. That's
Used to be maybe more of a question to Tammy if she has any insight on that at all. Can we hold on to that?
Yeah, we are going to hear from Tammy, so that's why Chair Edwards was mentioning if you guys have pressing questions, we can ask them now, but we can ask questions for both of our speakers at the end if you guys don't mind holding them. Awesome, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Evans. Lovely having you here. Okay, so we are going to move on with our introduction for the first time ever, the Wake County Register of Deeds, Tammy Bruner has been invited to come and speak to us. I'm going to keep it short so we can get through this and try to be a little more on time. So first, the one thing I think that everyone needs to take away about Tammy Bruner is not only is she qualified, right, but she used to train elected officials in winning elections, and she used that skill to get herself elected to become our Register of Deeds. Seriously, I mean, because she's really excellent. She has helped with campaigns starting from the U.S. Senate all the way down to the school board. She's very much well known for this kind of thing, and she truly believes that local elections are really where it's at, like most powerful, because that is those things that happen on the local election are the things that affect us greatly and quickly, right? Takes some time for the federal government's, decisions to kind of make its way down to us, but those local elections, those things matter, and she is just such a champion for, I would say, the citizens of Wake County. So with that, Tammy, you have the floor. I would like to introduce everyone to Tammy Bruner, who is the Wake County Register of Deeds.
So thank you for having me. It makes it even more special. I'm going to get to the point that I am an alumni of NC State. We gave a shout out to you and see earlier. So I'll say, and I did want to acknowledge International Women's Day, so thank you, Tammy, for doing that. I'm going to throw some data at you, not as much as Susan did, because Susan's way smarter than I am, so I'll just put that straight up front. Just a few data points from my office. I'm going to try not to read to you like a kindergarten teacher, but as you can see, this is the median value of real estate in Wake County. So it's not just homes, it is all real estate. So it's the median value of every piece of property or building sold in Wake County. And you can see that the value is increasing way more than the properties that we have. Way more than are being transferred, the prices are increasing much quicker. I just wrapped all of this into 2022. I thought we'd talk about just that full year of 2022 instead of going into each month. But I hope that all of y'all get the real estate monthly report that I send out every month. It's now coming out about the third of the month, and you'll get this information about the previous month. So this is the aggregate value of real estate transferred last year. As Susan said, 1 million is blue, 1 million is below is blue, orange is 1 million to 30 million, and gray is more than 30 million. And you can see in 2022 or 2021 December, I asked one of y'all today, I don't know how y'all survived 2021. My staff hardly survived it, and y'all are out there, they're at a specific place. But December is an example of what all of 2021 looked like. So while I don't want y'all's business to go down, my staff is really excited to be able to sit down every now and then. Yes, breathe a little bit. But you can see what the difference is. The higher priced real estate is dropping in Wake County. And this is just my opinion, but where else are they going to build? I don't know where these big properties are going to be built. These are the median real estate prices each month. You can see how they went up and down. And I like that they're going down. Again, that's the median price of all real estate, because I have staff that don't live in Wake County because they can't afford to live in Wake County. And we have an amazing county manager that has increased the salaries of employees across the board. So they are making more money than they have in the past, but they still cannot afford to live in the county that they work in. These are the amount of deeds, as you can see, that were transferred. Susan talked about this as well, but this is for all of 2022. And you can see the green, again, how 2021 was pure insanity. And we are, I mean, we're going back to more 2019 rates, times, busyness. So it took me a little bit to figure that out because I came into this space in 2020 and it was, gangbusters in 2020, 21, 22. We're not slow, we're normal right now. So that's all the data I'm gonna throw at you. I'm happy to answer any questions. And again, I hope that y'all get the monthly report that is sent out. You can sign up for it on our website. Normally, the purpose of me being anywhere is to tell people what the Register of Deeds office does. You guys and funeral home directors might be the only people that actually know what we do. So I thought I'd just run through the things that we do. You know that we have a vital records department, a recording department, we have an indexing department. What I left off here is we also now have a passport office. Vital records, just like it says, your birth, your death, your marriage, all of that comes through our office. What I always say, it's the most important office that you've never heard of. Everything important that happens in your life happens in the office of the registrar. The recording, you know. I'm not going to go through that list. You absolutely know what happens in the recording department. But I don't think you understand what truly happens in the indexing department. The indexing department looks at every document that you submit to us. They verify that everything is correct. That's when it goes on record. And before what you said earlier, you get your keys. But then it goes through the same exact process again. So every document that comes in is read fully from beginning to end twice before it is put on record and filed away and put in a book. That's why I believe Wake County has less mistakes than most counties. This is what we've accomplished since 2020. I totally forgot that we started plat recording in 2021 because it was just a thing that somebody asked if we could do. So I talked to my staff. What I figured out in government, sometimes you just got to ask the question, and then other people need to ask that question on your behalf, and we literally needed to turn it on. So in 2021, we reopened to the public, which I'll just throw out here now. There are many registers of deeds offices across the state, but you still have to make appointments to get into their office. You just come in and out of our office on a regular basis. North Carolina Vital Records is the same. You have to make an appointment to go in and out of that office. I did speak at a realtors event in 2021, and someone asked me if we could just stop recording at 5 p.m. instead of 4:45. Remember, we used to stop at 4:45. If we could just do that 15 minutes, because that 15 minutes on a Friday could change a new homeowner's whole thing. So again, I asked my staff, is this difficult? I don't want to overpromise anything. No, just asking the question was all it took. We can't go past 5. Because my staff works until 5:15, so it gives them the end of the day to cash, to count their drawers, to cross all their T's and dot all of their I's. So 5 o'clock is really truly as late as we can go. We started offering more services at regional centers. I don't know if y'all know what regional centers are in Wake County. They're amazing. There are so many things that you can take care of at regional centers: social services, taxes, vital records. These are the locations of those services. The Register of Deeds, you've always been able to go in and get your birth certificate, because when you're applying for your kid to go to that magnet program, you have to have it yesterday. And if you get it from North Carolina Vital Records, it's going to take you 9 months. But if you go to one of these, you can get it in your hand for $10. We've expanded that to now you can get your marriage certificates there, and you can get your death certificates there as well. And we're working for them to be able to do your marriage license and your notarios. Do y'all know that the Register of Deeds office does notarios? I didn't before I got there. One other thing we're doing in Fuquay, Susan had a graph that showed the growth in the amount of permits that Fuquay requests. They came to us about 3 months ago and asked if there was any way that we could do recording at their regional center. So we are doing that once a month. in Fuquay. It's a pilot program. We'll see how it goes. The first time we went, 2 people showed up. But it was the first time, but just know if you're in the Fuquay area, I don't remember the date off the top of my head, but I'll find it and let Monique give it to y'all. You can go to that regional center out there instead of coming all the way to downtown Raleigh. One of the biggest things I'm proud of that we did when I got in is we partnered with Shaw University to go through all of the books in our office and know that our books go back to 1785. So that's 238 years of deeds that our staff, not our staff, volunteers went through and found every deed that had anything to do with an enslaved person, whether it was a deed, whether it was a will, whether it was a gift, or any way that they were transferred as property, as we know. We pulled out all of that information and now it is searchable on our website. I would love to say that this was my idea. It is not. It came from University of UNCG. They have a project called People Not Property. So they helped us launch this. And the biggest thing that I want to say is this cost Wake County $0 because volunteers did this entire thing. Monique told y'all my experience before was I worked in politics. I always tried to get volunteers. Like I spent hours and hours trying to get volunteers and nobody would volunteer. 285 people signed up for this event, for this project, and 60 people actually did the work. And then the other thing we did is we opened a passport facility. This is just a little bit of information about the Enslaved Persons Project. This is the deeds that those folks read. Like, we had to teach some of them how to read cursive because people don't know how to do that. It was pretty tough on these volunteers. We really had to talk to them about self-care, reading some of these documents. But it is extremely interesting, and I hope that y'all take the time to go to our website. The passport facility, I learned a lot when we opened this office. They're called passport acceptance facilities, and I don't know how many people in the room have one, but what this means is you do all the work. You fill out all of the documentation, and you bring it into our facility, and we make sure that you've done everything correctly. And then you pay a lot of money to send it off to the State Department. We just make sure that it's done right. We take pictures for you, so you don't have to go to Walgreens ahead of time to get that done. And we do, you should have an appointment, but we take walk-ins. Passport office is open from 8 to 3. But if you have something that's really important, if you call ahead, that staff is amazing and they will see you between 3 and 5. So that was all good stuff. This is stuff, we'll see if y'all still like me after I tell you that. So, as you know, because I hear it from all realtors, the Wake County real estate recording part of the Register of Deeds is really one of the best in the state. And I have nothing to do with that. I walked into this amazing staff and this amazing setup. So since 1998, we have had the same software system that handled all of our recordings. 1998, it's 2023. It's time to update. This Paraton is who we currently use. We are the only Register of Deeds in the entire world that they do this for. They literally build rocket ships. So every time we need to, legislation changes, something changes, we have to teach them the what, when, and why, and then we have to pay them to build it for us. We are going with another system at the end of the year, and I'm going to walk through a timeline with you. At the end of the year, that works with registers of deeds across the country. So when something new happens or something I'm interested in doing, I can say, you know what? I'd really like to open a passport facility. Do you have the software to do that? Yes, because Mecklenburg does that and Durham does that. I just have to turn it on. Instead of us paying thousands and thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars to build features. We're going with Tyler Technologies, and if any of y'all do work in Durham, that is, their new system is the same system we're going with. So I'm looking for what your faces look like, and no one's face changed. Okay. This is what it'll look like now. Y'all know, y'all have seen the same blue screen searching for records on our site again since 1998. This is what it's gonna look like with our own headings, but we'll still have the fraud card, we'll still have where you can, it just won't be books management. You'll still be able to research records, we'll have vital records, we'll have the Enslaved Persons Project, everything up here for you to click and search. And this is what the new search will look like. I tell you that Durham has this because I'd love for you to spend time going there and, or go to their site and let us know what the issues are. I saw somebody shaking their head. Is it because of the site? Yeah. So this is the timeline of this implementation. Last week was the first week that they were in our office, actually, you know, in the office, looking at every specific thing that we do. We had 3 vendors come into our office last year. No, we had 6 vendors come in. They presented, we chose 3, they presented more. We sent out emails, put on our website that people were able to come in and give their input on the service that we were going to choose. I think maybe 15 people showed up. So this is the timeline of what's going to happen. March through May, they are configuring and converting all of these documents. Like I said, we have records for 238 years, so this is no small undertaking. June through July, we're continuing with the conversion. We'll convert it 1 million times to make sure and verify that everything actually transferred and everything works. July through August, we'll do the internal testing to make sure again that it works. September, we'll start training for our staff and for folks like you. We will invite you, we will have it in person, we will have it virtual, and we will have it taped online for y'all to learn how to use this system. I'm not saying anything negative about Durham, but I will say I'm giving everybody a year to know that this is happening. Durham one day changed their system. So y'all have no heads up that this was gonna happen. Y'all have until October 16th to know that this is gonna happen. So everything will be the same until October 13th. We will be closed on October 13th. That is a Friday. I expected more than just that one person. Because that's what I said. That's what I said when they told me that was going to happen. And then October 16th, that Monday, we will go live with this new system. This is just, Monique thought it was really important that I let y'all know, this is what that office, like, these are all the things that we do. There are 41 people that work in our office. So it's just no small, I don't know how many of y'all come in, but like I said, I don't think people really understand how important this office is and the impact that it has on every resident of the county. This will, again, show you just the volume of work that happens in that office. And I wish I had done 2021, but I didn't. This is just 2022, and I'm not going to read all of it, and Monique can send this out. Y'all can have this whole presentation. So, but as you can see, the total revenue that's brought in by this office in 2022 was $47 million. So that's how much work that happens. Y'all are responsible for the recording fees, the excise tax. So just the work that y'all do also brings in a lot of revenue for the county. This is the contact info. You will get this. Hopefully y'all know who Joanne Rivera is in our office. She is the recording supervisor. And I'm not a manager that pretends to know all the things. I'm just not. You ask me a question and I don't know it, I'm gonna tell you I don't know it, and I'm probably gonna connect you to Joanne. So you're welcome to call me. But if you want a quicker answer, I bet you Joanne can give it to you better. And anything, if you find something wrong with the recording that you have, Mary Monroe is the indexing supervisor, and she can walk us through how to correct the incorrections. And that's it. That's all I got.
All right, thank you to both of our speakers today. We do have just a few minutes, so I did want to take any questions from the audience, any pressing questions.
Chair Edwards, I just want to ask if Tammy could go back to the slide where she showed me the slave project and had a copy of the deed. I just wanted to.
Okay, no problem.
And we got this question earlier, but we are going to send these slides out.
Oh, right. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Evans. I was just about to ask you if you could send your slides out as well. So so everyone who registered, we can get it to you, but you will need to reach out to Jordan Ford specifically. If you didn't register, but you came today and you would like a copy of the slides. All right, is there anyone who has a question? No? Okay. I'm sorry.
So on the current register of deeds, we can see the temp index, so we can see if it's getting ready to record. Can you please make sure that we still have access to that?
Yes, ma'am.
Because on Friday, that is a problem.
Yes, it will still have that, I promise.
Will this impact the mapping?
Where do you find the maps?
Where you find them?
Well, just the system that's used, is that associated with what you're using, taking over?
So that's the GIS department through Wake County. No, we will, so we're working with them very closely too, the tax department and GIS. So this will all be streamlined with them and you'll have the same services, just in a different, you'll just have to do it a different way.
So for Tammy's data, I understand it includes both residential and commercial. But for students' data, does it include both or just residential?
It includes all of it. Yours too. I'm sorry. Yours, I pulled that from my report.
It depends on which slide you're talking about, but definitely the one that just shows deeds is all deeds, I think, not just residential. Permitting?
Yeah.
Yes.
Any other questions?
All right, I'll just that's that quick note. This is for Commissioner Evans. For the commuter rail project, can you speak to the estimated cost of that at this point, and then what public feedback you received regarding the budget and how we plan to maybe cover that?
I can speak to the first part. So the feasibility study that was done last year, we got the results of that in like the August timeframe. If we built out the entire portion that went from the eastern edge of Wake County, the Auburn area, which is just east of Garner, all the way to the western side of Durham. Keep in mind, this doesn't include the Johnson County piece, but all of Wake County to the far edge of Durham. Approximately $3 to $3.2 billion for the total project. The complication with that is there are federal transit authority grants that you can apply for 50% matching, and that's in the plans of the years that we've been working on this. This is what we thought we were going to be able to do. The costs are now almost 75% or more than what we thought they were going to be. And part of that's inflation, but part of it is just that once you have more specifics and you drill down. And then there are all these metrics that you have to put in to apply for that federal funding, and they look at projected ridership and the cost and this and that. And so we're looking now at the things that show that we would only score medium low, and we may not rate where we need to for those 50% matching grants. So that is what's pushed the conversation to say perhaps We just need to phase it. So I do not yet have a report out from the public engagement piece just wrapped up recently. And Go Triangle, who's the organization charged with sort of administering all this bike transit plan for us, is going to bring us a report on all that soon, but I don't know where that goes per se, but that's just one piece of the input that we're taking. We're working together. I'm on a small group out of the Campo group and working together with the county folks to try. We've asked our staff for several different component pieces, even more than what the study gave us. You know, whether we do downtown Raleigh to just RTP, or whether we can maybe take it to downtown Garner, downtown Raleigh to RTP, maybe just to the bare eastern edge of Durham. So we're trying to get the pricing on various different little components, but our group, Go Triangle, is basically in charge with the two MPOs heavily involved. We'll make a decision within the next 6 months of what, if anything, will be our first phase. I have to say, if anything, but we certainly are planning to move forward with this, and we're just having to get more creative with financing options. But I know that's a long answer, but.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we are done with the questions. I did want to wrap up here just by saying that our Register of Deeds, Tammy Bruner, she has asked for us as an association to work with her to get this message out to all of our 10,000 members. I know today is recorded, but she is willing to do a video to take feedback from all of the membership as it relates to the current system, to just state that, you know, it's going to mimic Durham. And if there are any kind of bugs that she can work out with the software company, because they still are in the working through an implementation stage, if those things can get worked out beforehand, she's willing to pitch it to the software company so we can try to get it as tight as possible. So we're trying to provide some kind of mechanism between the Register of Deeds office and all of the members to get that feedback to her so that this can happen, because again, we do want a working system, you know, when it's time to actually launch. Of course.
Maybe I'm just protecting myself here, but I just want, this has been in the works for years. This is absolutely not something I would have done in my first term. This money has been set aside for the county for 3, 4, 5 years. So just know this has been a process that has been talked about for that long.
Well, and let me say that the county is very much on board with this transition for some of the reasons that Tammy alluded to. The current system that we have is very proprietary. And, you know, it put us ahead of the game many years ago, but it's very, very expensive every time we need to make changes to it. So we're trying to find a more sustainable solution that will be more nimble and will cost the county and the taxpayers less money. So we're working very closely, our staff work very closely with Tammy on this, and we're very much in favor and encouraging it. So she just inherited the other.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. So thank you so much, everyone, for your time and your engagement. I really appreciate all the support, and I really hope this was helpful today.